John Asbery is widely regarded as one of the most innovative and influential poets of the 20th century. His unique means of defying literary norms exhibited through his poems' bold structuring and experimental bent challenge readers to reflect upon the act of writing itself. His erudite work is complex, provoking, and wildly subjective. Asbery was born in Rochester, New York in 1927. According to an article in Slate, Asbery wrote his first poem at age 8. The tall haystacks are great sugar mounds. These are the fairies' camping grounds. Asbery attended the all-boys Deerfield Academy and graduated from Harvard in 1949. His education was continued as he earned his M.A. from Columbia in 1951, moving on to study in France under a Fulbright. His first book was Some Trees, published in 1956. It achieved notoriety by the award of the Yale Younger Poets Prize, as awarded by W.H. Auden. Asbery contributed to numerous art journals. He returned to France in 1958, where he worked as the art critic for the New York Herald Tribune's European edition and covered shows for Arts International and Art News. By 1965, Asbery had returned to New York once more. He became the executive editor of Art News, a position he retained until 1972. He has been associated with the New York School of Creative Writers that included Frank O'Hara, James Schuler, and Kenneth Koch. The informal school of the 50s and 60s consisted of a grouping of artists including painters, dancers, and musicians. The poets were inspired by movements such as Surrealism and Abstract Expressionism. They worked to adapt styles of works such as the action paintings of Jackson Pollock to inspire their free-form literary tactics, writing in an immediate and spontaneous manner. Asbery strikes a casual connection amongst the members, stating, "We were a bunch of poets who happened to know each other. We would get together and read our poems to each other, and sometimes we would write collaborations." Asbery's personal influences include the American Romantic tradition of Walt Whitman and Wallace Stevens, the aforementioned New York School, and various French Surrealist writers, for whom Asbery served as critic and translator under the name Jonas Barry during his time in Paris in the 50s and 60s. These are some of his fine literary masterpieces. Asbery continually places a bold ultimatum before the reader, challenging them to blur the lines between poetry and prose as they read. Ultimately, Asbery states of his work, "My poetry is disjunct, but then so is life." This statement reflects his desire to capture snapshots of feeling and ethereal sentiments through creative open expression. Asbery has enjoyed a thoroughly prolific career. Some of his most famous works include the radically experimental The Tennis Court Oath of 1962, Houseboat Days of 1977, and the book-length Flowchart of 1991. Where Shall I Wander of 2005 reflects upon themes of mortality. Self-Portrait and Convex Mirror of 1975 garnered various celebrated prizes, including the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry, the National Book Critics Circle Award, and the National Book Award. The soul establishes itself, but how far can it swim out through the eyes and still return safely to its nest? The surface of the mirror being convex, the distance increases significantly. That is enough to make the point that the soul is a captive, treated humanely, kept in suspension, unable to advance much farther than your look as it intercepts the mirror. Let us consider the context of the passage. We commence with a piece from towards the beginning of the work, in which essential prominent themes of the piece are revealed. Immediately in the text preceding the passage, the notion of copies, of duplication and replication, are focused upon. This suggestion of artificiality is enhanced by the entrapment of the soul, the essential spiritual component of an individual, such as the portrayed artist. By utilizing the soul, Asbery is able to create a deep sense of personalization that radiates throughout the reader as well. By certain hegemonic religious principles, a soul exists beyond the body, expressing itself through its lack of reliance upon the corporeal. It is what is ultimately privy to salvation or cursed with damnation. To ensnare it within artificial earthly bounds is to stifle it, to place it within a stagnant purgatory, eliminating any hope for its advancement into other realms. Initially, Asbery places the soul into an effective position, capable of singular, independent action. It has the ability to uniquely establish or to form itself by a set of principles residing outside of the poem, yet upon entering into the poem, restraints subject the soul to a limited framework. Perhaps This suggests a certain commentary upon the nature of free will and how society adopts its moral standards in the form of limitations. It tests these limits, attempting to push past their boundaries as indicated by the words of challenge. How far? Yet it is dependent upon the world in which it resides, so it must pragmatically stay within the reach of the nourishment and protection offered by the next. The convex shape of the mirror distorts it, giving it the illusion of additional space and freedom, yet the image it reflects is ultimately a falsehood. The soul is later described as longing to be free, outside. It is kept upon a short leash, it must be satisfied with only distorted images it receives, for what are the alternatives in such a world? The convex shape of the mirror gives the illusion of hope, of an infinity beyond the mirror's frame. It gives the hypothetical soul just enough room to wander so that it has no reason to legitimately complain. It can breathe, it can stretch its wings and lightly test the air, but it's just enough to keep it barely satiated. It is a prisoner. These words of distance indicate a very tangible, measurable space, emphasizing the physicality of the soul, the essence trapped by the mirror. There is a forward emphasis, for the only alternative is retreat, a form of defeat, a notion highly uncharacteristic of most human desires. Your look as it intercepts the picture seems to suggest a duality of perception. The soul is not only that of the observer standing before the painting, but also that of the reflected image of the artist, trapped upon its surface. The look intercepts the picture, indicating that there is a commonality between them. Yet they are not synonymous. Indeed, what they partake in is a shared humanity that places them in a distinct dichotomy of representation and represented.